Hey, how's it going? Will Dano here. Recently I worked on a small project with Origin Films where I had to green screen a bunch of people onto a city background and add a little bit of camera motion to it. Obviously you can do a lot of things while you're shooting to make the footage a little bit better and easier to key later, like having softer lighting, bringing your subject a little bit forward so that the green doesn't spill on their backs. But today I'm going to go over the specifics of how I went about it in the post-production process right inside of After Effects. Alright, so here I am in After Effects and this is pretty much what we're going to be creating. Just something very simple. I'm just demonstrating how to green screen in this tutorial. We're going to be going over some other stuff, but this video is not really meant to go over a lot of detail. This is just mainly to green screen the footage. And also, I'm going to assume that you somewhat know your way around After Effects. So let's get started. So I'm going to go into my original footage and I'm going to pick out a part that I would like to use for my effect. And then I'm just going to drag that into a new composition. Select the clip. I'm going to go over to my effects and presets and I'm going to search key light. There's two options to choose from. There's key light, the effect itself, but that only has the keyer effect. And I don't just want that one. I want the preset that comes with After Effects now. That's called key light plus key cleaner plus advanced spill suppressor. And basically that's three different effects that are usually used together with green screens to help with cleaning the key a little bit. So for now, I'm just gonna disable those and we're just gonna work with key light at first. So with key light, I'm just gonna grab the color picker and I'm gonna pick a color. Just gonna scrub here a little bit. I like to go to screen matte to make sure that I have my whites and blacks proper. So basically I'm gonna go into my screen matte settings here. Basically I wanna decrease the whites so that the subject that I'm green screening is as white as possible. Now she's filled in perfectly white, but there's black around. So I'm just gonna increase the clip black and that's gonna take out the black. Now there's also a little mistake here with the green screen. I'm not sure if that's just a little sticker there or whatever it might be, but our actress doesn't hover over it. So I'm just gonna draw a mask around it and subtract the mask. Hit F and give it a bit of a feather. And when I go to intermediate result again, we'll see that that's gone. So now this is what we have. We can do some more things to clean it up. I like to go into the screen shrink and grow and do maybe -2, which basically shrinks pixels a little bit. And now I'm gonna turn on key cleaner. And that gives it a little bit of a nicer, softer, blurred feel. And then I'll also click reduce chatter. And that's also gonna help in a little bit of the areas around the hair where it gives it some more detail. And then of course, I'll turn on the spill suppressor and that's gonna take out all the greens at the edges. And that already gives us a pretty good look to at least start with. And then later afterwards, when we put in the background and the color correction, we can come back here and make some more changes. So I have a skyline image and I'll just drop it into the background here. It's a little bit larger, so obviously I'll scale it down a bit. This is just so that we have an actual reference when we're working with this. And I'll also create a new camera and make the preset somewhere in the middle. I like 35mm. We'll hit OK. And I'll also turn on both layers to be 3D layers. So I'll just enable the 3D cubes and I like to put my camera at the bottom. So now the problem is if I rotate my camera, we're going to see that the layer that has the person in it is exactly in the same place as the actual background. But we want to create 3D parallax. So what we should do here is I'm just gonna go to custom view number 1, which gives me a different angle to work with while keeping my camera intact here. And what I'm just gonna do is I'll select the background image and click on the Z parameter and move this back while hitting shift so that it moves faster all the way back in Z space. So that it's just right behind our subject. And I'll go back into my active camera and we're gonna see that that's further away now. And then I'll just make it larger again. And what that's going to do now is when we rotate the camera, we're going to get some real parallax where the background moves faster than what's in front of it. Now when I'm rotating the camera, you can already see that I'm getting some black edges here. So I'll just scale the background up a lot more and recompose as needed. And now when I rotate, that gives me enough room to see what's around so that later when I'm animating, I actually have some room to play with. All right, so let's create a simple animation just so that we have something to work with, and then we can start with our color corrections and things like that. And so I'm gonna go to the beginning, I'm gonna select my camera, and I'm gonna hit A to bring up the point of interest, and then I'm gonna hit Shift P to also bring up the position, because depending on how you move your camera, both of these parameters might be used. And so we have to keyframe both of them to animate proper camera movement. So I'm just gonna animate both of these. I'm gonna maybe zoom out a little bit and rotate the camera that way. And then I'm gonna go to the end of the video and I'm gonna rotate maybe the other way, move the camera a little bit there so that we recompose our talent. And now we have a simple camera animation around our talent. Now you can of course tweak this later, but this is just for us to start with right now. Now let's go ahead and make this look a little bit better. So I'm gonna select my background and add a Gaussian blur to it, just to blur it out a little bit, 15 pixels. You can do what you like. Repeat edge pixels so that there's no weird stuff at the edges, although we don't see it right now. And now we have a little bit of a depth of field. And I'll also add a new adjustment layer and call it CC, and I'll add a little bit of a starter grade so that we get an idea of what things will look like. So I'm gonna add in a Lumetri effect. And I also like to go into window and select my Lumetri scopes so that I see what I'm doing when I'm actually coloring the video. And I'll add in some highlights, increase the shadows a little bit. Maybe the blacks are a little bit too black. Maybe just increase those a tad so they're not being crushed. Add a little bit of contrast. Maybe you can add a LUT from anywhere. I'm gonna select one of the basic LUTs that comes with After Effects. And I'll set it obviously to something like 20%. And that gives us a little bit of a different look, maybe 35%. Go back to my basic corrections and make it a little bit warmer. Basically play around with it as you see fit depending on your image. And then a nice way to blend green screen stuff with non-green screen stuff, so basically just blending different elements, is by adding a glow effect. And so you could just search glow at the effects and presets, find glow, and obviously that's too much, so we'll just increase the threshold a little bit so that it selects less areas. Now it's basically selecting a little bit of her shirt and a bit of the background, but that's okay because when you increase the radius a bit, it kind of gives everything a nice glowy look, and that helps overlap the colors from the background on top of her so that things look a little more natural. And we're done for now with the color correction. You can obviously go back to anything at any time and correct as needed. So for example, I don't think the colors on the actress look right, so I'm just gonna go back to the original footage and I'll add in a curves adjustment and I'll change the colors a little bit. I think there's more magentas in the background, so what I'll do is I'll go into the greens and decrease that a little bit, and that'll already add in a bit more magenta. You can also play around with the other parameters, give it more contrast or brightness. You can of course do whatever you want to make this look better. You can even add some lens flares or any kind of bokeh effects on top of it. Set it to a screen transfer mode and turn the opacity down. You can do a lot of things to make this look right, but obviously the first step is to green screen, and that's how I green screened these shots, just by adding in the key light effects along with the key cleaner and advanced spill suppressor. Then add the rest of your elements and color correct things as needed. All right, I hope that was helpful in one way or another. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions for future tutorials, please put them down in the comments below wherever you're watching the video. And as always, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.